All right, welcome back, everyone, here into Right Now, streaming on the CBS 8 app. Another reminder also as well, too, as we are getting ready here for the middle part of our show. If you've got friends, you've got family, and you've been telling them here about our show, and they're like, how do I watch that? Get CBS 8 app, easy to download.
Same place
on
you're
your
watching
phone.
it right now.
Exactly. Tell them to go ahead. You can do the Bluetooth app share, I think, right? Like you just put the phones together, you say share this app.
Yeah.
That's how it gets done. Super easy to do. All right, a new study is drawing attention to California's biggest earthquake threat. Researchers at the University of Hawaii say that the San Andreas Fault could be under exceptionally high levels of tectonic stress, possibly the highest in 1,000 years. News 8's Brian White has what a local expert has to say about these new findings.
The geologist I spoke with says this study helps researchers better understand the stress that may be building along the San Andreas Fault, but it does not change one thing. No one can predict when the next major earthquake will hit. 1,000 years of earthquake history fed into a new computer model. Researchers at the University of Hawaii used geologic and seismic data to estimate how much stress has built up along the San Andreas and San Jacinto faults. They found stress levels may now be at or even above anything seen in 1,000 years.
They're taking all these existing old information, converting a lot of that stuff, adding geophysical information to try to make it into an energy analysis. How much strain energy, what stresses are there, what is waiting to be released? And then the numbers come out, well, shall I say disappointingly high?
The study suggests a future earthquake could involve both the San Andreas and San Jacinto faults, creating a larger event than a single fault earthquake. Dr. Pat Abbott, professor emeritus of geology at SDSU, says that possibility reminds him of what happened in Turkey in 2023, when two major quakes struck along parallel faults just hours apart.
We've long been waiting for, quote, the big one on the San Andreas, and now we see here that it might be even bigger than we thought.
But Dr. Abbott stresses this is not a prediction. He still cannot say when or how that stored energy will be released. He says the biggest risks often come from what happens inside our homes and offices, like falling furniture, unsecured objects, and older structures.
The biggest problem from the earthquake is not the ground shaking, it's our buildings, our possessions falling on top of us. And so the best thing to do with this kind of knowledge is to prepare yourself.
Dr. Abbott says the fear of an earthquake should not interfere with our day-to-day lives, but he says take a look around our homes, our office, and look for things that are unsecured up high that could fall on us in the event of an earthquake so that we can be prepared. I'm Brian White, News 8.
All right, welcome back in. Of course, Brian White now joining us here as you saw him there on your screen. Brian, one of the questions, I mean, Jack, actually feel free to ask it now. I think it was a good question here that we were asking there during the story that was playing there.
Yeah, I mean, you described to us, we were talking about the location of the fault line in general. You mentioned it starts at the Salton Sea, runs all the way up through the state. When it comes to the anticipation of course, everyone wants to talk about the big one, but any earthquake that relates to the San Andreas Fault in particular, considering the location for where the vast majority of San Diegans lived, which is, close to the water, the very far west side of San Diego County, how would you assess the general risk level of those who are living near the coast? Essentially, we care about everyone. We want to make sure those that are living in East County are okay, but what's the risk depending on location?
I asked him that, Dr. Abbott, what a pro.
Yeah.
This guy, super smart, always available, so great for TV. Super smart scientist who can deliver those punchy sound bites. But I asked him that very question, and I asked him what areas of the county would maybe be more vulnerable to an earthquake like that coming off the San Andreas. And he said if directionality matters a lot. If the rupture direction goes north, then we're less affected. If the rupture direction starts in the San Bernardino area and kind of comes south, then Mexicali. He pointed to Mexicali as being directly south of the southern end of the fault line, ending at or near the Salton Sea. So he mentioned Mexicali in particular, but as far as San Diego County, he didn't point to any areas in particular that would be more vulnerable than others. Obviously, there would be effects, but he really brought up things like freeway bridges, things like older, taller buildings, like high-rise type buildings that would have been built before the newer, stricter codes and standards, have been applied. So those are the things that he said are more vulnerable to collapse, things you need to worry about more if you're in or near those kinds of things. That's what he had to say about that.
But I think, so let's go back to the bigger picture then. How would you say that he sort of assessed this study as a whole? I know that there have been, I've lived in California now for 8 years. It'll be 9 years coming up here in December. You've lived here your whole life, right? So you've been hearing, obviously, about the threat of a large earthquake. We obviously know what happened in San Francisco, I believe. It was the 90s, right? Or the 80s, the last sort of like big one.
That's right.
Yeah.
Late 80s, I believe.
Late 80s. Is his assessment that this is like confirming, like, yeah, we are suspecting things? Or is it like, oh, this is a little bit worse of a forecast than I thought?
Exactly what you just said.
Okay, the latter.
Said this modeling is just more technology applied. It's taking, he likes what they did here, taking a lot of the different information from different things like seismology, geography, and pulling all these things together to make a compilation, of data and just put it all in there. And then we have these smart computers that can, calculate all these things and come up with a way to figure out what kind of energy is being stored in there. And he says, when energy is built up in there, the stress, it does need to be released at some point. But like he said, yes, it forecast looks a little, things look a little more tense there along the tectonic plates there than would have been hoped for. But he did say, it doesn't change the fact that, no one can predict if or when the next major earthquake would occur. So he definitely underscores, don't let it affect your day-to-day life. Yeah. But there is a lot of stress there. Yeah. There is a lot of stress building up.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those things where, hurricanes, you track them. Tornadoes, the ingredients are all ripe and you can put out a tornado warning. But with an earthquake, I mean, Jack, I'm not sure. Have you been around one, or maybe even just like a little shake? Because for a lot of people, they don't know.
A lot I slept through, so yeah. I know I have, but I couldn't say I felt it myself because I'm a very deep sleeper. Yeah. But I mean, I've lived here on and off for about 5 years now. I'm heading into my 6th year living in California, and I do know that, it happens. It happens often. Many times it is very subtle, not a whole lot, but you're completely right. As someone who lived in Florida, in a way, I kind of liken the concept of preparing for an earthquake in some way to a wildfire. And this situation kind of, I think, draws that comparison in my eyes because, we know fire season starts, you have a bit of data, but that bit of data, whether that's the amount of dry vegetation, whether that's the wind, whether that's the heat, the lack of precipitation, there's ingredients that come together at a certain point, but you don't know when, pun intended, I guess, when that spark is going to, when that match is going to spark and you're going to start to see a fire. The same goes for an earthquake. This is the data that shows us that what we already know, which is that there is tension and there is something that is building up. Now, oftentimes it is minute and it is subtle. Like we see, your overnight 1.8, 2.4 magnitude earthquakes that just are more than a little tremor throughout the night. But it's a matter of when is it going to happen, because that the ingredients are present in the environment, but will it happen? That's something that's harder to tell because, like you said, you have data, you have, models that project the path of a hurricane. So as scary as they may be, you have that time to prepare.
And I think that this is sort of what this research is saying, and that's what Dr. Abbott is saying, that essentially now we can prepare, meaning buildings can be updated to code or new codes can be made, right? I mean, essentially that's how the preparation is done now.
Yeah, there's been a lot of retrofitting. He did mention the Northridge earthquake in 1994. It was in the Los Angeles area, and there's been a lot of updates after that. So a lot of buildings are much stronger. It would be buildings built prior to that, even decades prior to that are of the taller type that can sway. Yeah. He did mention that especially tall, high-rise type buildings that are near water, like either on the bay or on the coast, because the foundation would not be as strong because in an area where it's going to be more water saturated. So that in an earthquake scenario, that would be weaker.
Got it.
And yeah.
Okay.